Wednesday, August 6th will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Perrine?
Here.
Commissioner McGurk?
Here.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Here.
Mayor Cleveland?
Here.
And Commissioner Ashley has an excused absence.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have a quorum, and so we will proceed. This is a workshop, so there'll be no voting taking place today. It's learning for all of us. This is round two for the budget, and so if you're here today as a citizen and want to speak on the budget, we're anxious to hear what you have to say. We're going to open it to public participation in just a minute. This is your opportunity to come up and offer us input, your suggestions, your ideas, your concerns about the budget. And so it's a monologue, not a dialogue. We won't be answering questions, but we encourage you to come up. And when you do, your name, please, and your address. And then you'll see a green light come on. It means you have 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you have a minute. And then you should be done when the red light comes on. So public participation is now open. Anyone wishing to address the commission, please come forward and you'll be heard. Mr. Romero.
Good morning.
Good morning, man.
South Cooper Street. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, today I come before you in regards to the Detweiler Courts of Detweiler Park. I am representing the Detweiler Bad Apple Pickleball Group. It's a new group that just started up with our players there. We have about 60 people right now in our group. It's free to join. My feeling is if you pay taxes here, you should be able to join a group, period. You play there, you pay taxes. I have met people from Switzerland that have played there and love playing there. I've met people from England that have played there and love playing there. We play every day. I play from Sunday to Friday. I meet a lot of folks there. And what I've noticed is our courts are in dire need of some resurfacing or some doing work on there, because what I've noticed is that when it rains, our courts get pulled up, especially from the last three courts going west. It's a lot of water pulls up on the courts. And one of our members bought us a giant squeegee roller, 2 squeegees there, and we use those to clean the water off there. When you roll the squeegee over the puddle, it's so high that the puddle still stays there. You have to come back and forth there because the level is not level at all. So we need to have a holistic point of view to look over the parks and the courts, see how we can better reimagine those courts. The lines for the pickleball courts were put in 2022. The courts were sanded down and partially resurfaced and filled in any cracks bigger than an eighth of an inch, I think it was there, in 2017. In 2007, according to city records, the basketball court was put in and they resurfaced the courts. That's over 17 years ago. Now, what I'm finding is these cracks are getting bigger and bigger as the time goes on, and as the water pools in there, it goes under to the substrate. And I'm finding that some of the areas on the courts are now getting hollow as you tap on them, which means it's better to be undermined below there. So we need to have, in the future, not today, and the budget's well in process here, if we can find some money for Mr. Salazar and Mr. Ray to evaluate the courts and see what it could be, what can be happening in the future for next year's budget, 27, 28 timeframe there. So I just wanted to mention that to you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the comment. Anyone else for public participation? Sir?
Good morning. My name is Brandon Carroll, representing Local 2271, and I proudly serve for the New Smyrna Beach Fire Department for the past 5 years. I'm here today not just as a firefighter, but as someone who cares deeply about this department and community we serve. And I want to speak honestly about the crossroads that the fire department's facing. Right now, 32% of the department has applied for other fire departments, and that includes me. We're not doing this because we want to leave New Smyrna Beach. We're doing it because our pay does not reflect the level of work, responsibility, and sacrifice this job demands. This is a fire department, but the reality is we run about 60% medical calls where we perform advanced life-saving procedures like intubating patients, a skill that in most cases is only done by doctors in hospitals. Let me give you some real examples of what our department has accomplished. We saved a drowning victim from the beach, and that patient walked out of the hospital. We performed CPR and defibrillated a heart attack victim in full cardiac arrest on Flagler Avenue, and he walked out of the hospital. We fought the Ocean Breeze fire and saved the majority of the structure, and they were able to build back. We also fought a house fire during a hurricane on South Atlantic and saved the majority of the structure, even through wind-driven rain. We saved a 9-year-old child from the backseat of a vehicle on I-95 where his mother was deceased in front of him in the front seat. And that's near and dear to me because that was me. These are not isolated incidents. These are kind of calls we respond to every day. And we do it while working nearly 800 more hours than other fire departments in the city, including weekends, holidays, and nights. We make the sacrifice willingly, but the compensation doesn't match the commitment. Recently, the fire chief, deputy chief, and training chief received raises through reclassification to match their counterparts in the police department. But no adjustments were made for the firefighters doing the hands-on work in the streets. Why not us? So far, 3 firefighter paramedics have already left our department due to pay. And again, we're looking at a situation where nearly a third of the department could walk out. What's the plan when that happens? Do we brown out stations? Shut down trucks? Delay responses? Because that's the real risk we're staring down if something doesn't change and fast. We're not asking for anything excessive. We're asking for the pay that reflects the critical work we do and ensures we can continue protecting the community at full strength. Thank you for your time, and please take this seriously. The future of the department and the safety of our citizens depend on it.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that, sir. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Mr. Manager, would you please set the table for our discussion today, sir?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Today is our second budget workshop. We are going to give you another broad overview and focus particular attention on some of the items that have had some minor changes since the last time that we met. Finance Director is going to go through the presentation, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Jeff?
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Thank you for joining us today for the third public meeting on the City Manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. As you may recall, we held a budget workshop on July 10th where the proposed budget was presented in detail, covering both fund level and department level budgets. During that session, commissioners asked questions and provided feedback on several key items, including the proposed millage rates, stormwater fees, and marina dockage rates. We also discussed future budget considerations. Then on July 22nd, the Commission convened a special meeting to revisit the budget, and at that meeting, the maximum operating millage rate was set at 4.637 mils, the same as the current year. The maximum voted debt millage rate for the Turnbull Creek Land Acquisition General Obligation Bond was set at 0.1115 mils. We also held the first reading of an ordinance to adopt 125 stormwater fee, which is per EDU. The actions taken by Commission at that special meeting authorized these amounts, the millage rates and stormwater fee, to be included in the August trim notice that will be going out to residents of the city. In today's workshop, we will revisit some of the information presented at these previous meetings. We will not get into the fund and department detail unless requested by Commission. Instead, we will focus on the changes between the fiscal year 2025 adopted budget of $139 million, the amended fiscal year 2025 budget of $203 million, and the City Manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 of $199 million. We'll also highlight the general fund, which serves as the city's primary operating fund, and we'll close with a refresher on future budget considerations. As a refresher, the budget process began with a review and understanding of the strategic priorities established by the City Manager and Commission. These priorities served as the foundation for our financial planning and decision-making. While the proposed budget supports all 9 priority themes, we placed particular emphasis, both in terms of focus and financial investment, on 3 key themes: building a transparent, high-performing organization centered on customer service, maintaining the health and safety of our neighborhoods, and improving the function and appearance of existing infrastructure. Next, let's review key assumptions that guided the development of the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, starting with the revenue assumptions. Property values are estimated at $7.5 billion, reflecting continued growth in our tax base. The proposed budget maintains the same operating millage rate as the current fiscal year, 4.637 mils. The budget plans to issue a $5.5 million additional bond to support the Turnbull Creek land acquisition, which would result in an increase to the voted debt millage rate, bringing it to 0.1115 mils. The stormwater fee is proposed to increase from $104 to $125 per EDU, and we are also proposing an increase in marina dockage rates. Other revenues are projected to increase by approximately 3% based on current trends and economic indicators. And lastly, the budget does include the full amount of funds carried forward from prior years based on current estimates, and that is something that was new in fiscal year 2025 with the amendments. Now let's talk about the expense assumptions. We applied a zero-based budgeting approach both for operating and capital expenses, ensuring that every dollar is justified and aligns with the strategic priorities. The budget reflects a 15% increase in insurance premiums for workers' comp, property, and casualty insurance. We also included a 3% increase in employee benefits for health, dental, and vision plan increases. Funding is also included to support implementation of the pay plan study and to accommodate new union contracts. The budget adds 7 new positions, 6 in public works and 1 in capital projects to support delivery and infrastructure needs. We've allocated $2 million for street resurfacing and $3 million for fleet replacement to continue investment in core infrastructure. And lastly, we reduced the allocated overhead from $2.3 million to $1.3 million, reflecting a more efficient distribution of the administrative costs.
Joe, before you go to the next slide, can we reset the rule set? You and I discussed ahead of time, you'd like questions as we go rather than questions at the end.
Sure.
So with that said, would you refresh my memory, the second bullet down, 15% insurance premium increase, workers' comp. Has that been what's the, looking back over the last 5 years, it's been 15% a year, or is this a big jump? I mean, eventually, that's a big number. Eventually, you've doubled your.
Yeah, actually, that is primarily being driven by a reevaluation of all the properties. So approximately every 3 years, the insurance companies will come in and reappraise all of your properties to ensure that you're insured at a proper level. So that's what's driving that 15% increase this year.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Martin.
The one new position in capital projects, is that the resiliency manager?
Yes.
And he'll be, looks like you're going to chime in. Yeah, I
Yes,
thought,
ma'am, it's what we're calling the natural resources manager position. It'll be housed in the city manager's department in capital projects, at least temporarily until we get the position on the
so
ground.
the capital projects is the housing portion, but it's actually a report to the city manager?
It will report to me, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And so we're going to go through these in every slide, so just give me a signal here and I'll stop the music. Commissioner Perrine.
On this section where it says includes funds to assist with the implement of the pay plan study and new union contracts, I was surprised at the public speak that the firefighters are requesting because 32% have been looking for other jobs, because this is news to me. This board up here has always put safety first, and everything. We approved fire trucks last year in the millions, and we put our police and firemen very first. So how does what we just heard from them equate to what I'm seeing right here on this pay plan study, that we usually make our approvals based on what you guys are telling us when we're out of line with other cities.
Well, you'll recall that earlier this fiscal year, the commission authorized us to engage a consultant to do a classification and pay study. So we initiated that process earlier in the spring, and the consultant has been doing the research, working with other cities. We've looked at cities all throughout the state of Florida, comparable cities to us, to determine what the prevailing wages are for the various positions. I think we've evaluated about 100 different positions that we've looked at carefully to make sure that those job descriptions and the work being performed is copacetic. And we're expecting to have results of the pay study later this month, and we'll use that as a basis for continued negotiations with both police and fire unions, as well as developing pay for our other employees to make sure that we're paying them a fair wage. And so we have allocated funds in this budget that we believe will cover those costs.
Thank you.
Could we dig there for just a second? I know we've got a great many of the firefighters here, and maybe it's a Heather question. And without getting into any negotiation or any comments about negotiation, is this a recent occurrence, or have we been out of step for a while in the compensation world?
So, of course, the fire department is operating under the current contract that they have that was approved 2 years or 3 years ago. I'm not. 3 years ago.
Toward the end of a 3 year. Toward the end of a 3 year.
So, things have definitely changed in 3 years, and we're taking all of that into account. Heather can expand on that.
Yeah, we entered into a 3-year contract. It expires this September 30th. So we're in the middle of negotiations. But when we did that contract, there was, in 22, we did the compression issue that we've talked about numerous times. I can go into any detail that you'd like for that. We worked on that, and then we agreed to 3% and 3%. Over the course of the time since we did that, other cities have made other improvements that have been larger than our 3% increases. So we've fallen behind. March of, not this year, the previous year, I went to city manager at the time, Mr. Reshdat. We talked about how far we had come behind, and we talked about would there be an option where we would want to look at something outside of the contract. Excuse me. And at that time, it was decided not to move forward with any differences. So we were expecting there to be some bigger increases that would needed for this contract.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess we'll go ahead and get into this now. So, as Commissioner Perrine just said, I'm not aware of this situation. I haven't heard either from you guys or the fire chief that there's some significant problem here. You brought it up at the last budget meeting. We briefly touched on it. So I guess my question, city manager said you've budgeted some funds in anticipation for this negotiation when the study comes back. Okay. We adopt the budget next month, right? Okay, so do we anticipate getting this done and discussed and worked out before we adopt the budget? What's the thought here?
Well, the union contract expires at the end of September. Your budget is projected to be adopted, I think, September 23rd, somewhere around there. So we should have the full picture by then for both police and fire, and for all of the other employees that work hard as well.
Okay, so when it was brought up last time, I pointed out that I've been doing this 13 years. Fire always wanted it on the back end, police always wanted it on the front end, and we've always had compression issues. And let me not mince any words. I've always supported both fire and police. So if there's a significant undervaluation of what the employees are being paid, and that's just not fire and police, I'm a firm believer in making sure that we pay people fair wages, competitive wages. I'm a little surprised to hear that 32% of the entire fire department wants to leave. That's news to me. I'm surprised by that because I haven't heard those kind of complaints in years. So just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm not a difficult person to get a hold of or find. Everybody knows where I'm at. So maybe some communication beforehand would always, certainly be recommended. I would like to think that we can go ahead and get this done. Do we know when the study is going to be back for us to take a look at?
Well, I'm optimistic we'll have it by the end of August.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
Yeah, there has been discussion about parity, and I know Mr. Carroll referred to the top 3 in the fire department reaching parity with the police department. Is there any discussion about, other parity, like, pay and retirement and benefits?
Respectfully, I'm going to refer that over to Shay if I can talk about that because that's part of
Okay.
negotiations.
Thank you.
I would advise to stay away from that
Thank
at this
you.
point in time.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one follow-up from the conversation. We already set the millage rate, so, was that a factor in that already? So this is kind of a surprise to hear this for all of us. And as you can see, we're like a deer in headlights because we weren't expecting that. So, but not to say that we didn't hear from staff. It could have been buried in the numbers that they needed. So my question is, was that presented to us within your rate with this, without going into detail on the amounts? Was that planned for us already?
Yes, we, from the beginning of building the budget, we included a placeholder for wage increases. We don't know what it will be, so we took a educated guess, and that is included in the budget.
Thank you. That's
Yeah, and
Mr.
let me
Manager.
just reiterate, this is not new. This was something that was identified early since I've been here that, I felt that our wages in the city needed to be looked at. I recommended that we do this pay and classification study, and you funded that. That was a new item that was not included in the original 2025 budget. We allocated funds for that, and we initiated that study on the premise that we had police and fire union negotiations, and that we felt that there was a high possibility that a lot of our other positions had fallen behind where they needed to be. So at this point, we're just waiting on the information to come. But as Joe said, we did build in funds into the budget to take all of this into account.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Joe, thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Continue, please.
Next slide. Okay, on this slide, we're going to talk about reserves, which have been formally budgeted for the first time. While the city has always maintained reserves in its bank accounts, the specific amounts set aside to meet commission's reserve targets were not previously reflected in the budget itself. In this proposed budget, we've made that change. So you'll see a new revenue line, funds carried forward from the prior year, which is a revenue. and shows as available resources, and a corresponding expense line, required reserves, has been included on the expense side to reflect the amount being set aside for future needs. This budget change contributes to some of the large increases you'll notice in the proposed budget totals throughout today's presentation. The fund balance targets set by commission range from 25% for the general fund to 15% for the airport and marina fund. For context, the GFOA recommends a minimum reserve of 2 months, or 16.67%. And you heard from our auditors a few meetings ago, they recommend 3 to 4 months, or 25% to 33%, given our vulnerability as a coastal community to large unpredictable expenses like hurricanes. All funds, with the exception of the building fund, currently have sufficient financial resources to meet these reserve targets. Some key updates since our last budget discussions. First, there's been a small reduction in the assessed taxable value. In June, the assessed value was $7.5 billion. The updated value is now $7.536 billion. It's a small decrease of $18.25 million, and that results in a reduction of about $800,000 in ad valorem revenue. Or $80,000, sorry. Pardon me. Second, we've created a new fund, and it's dedicated to the opioid settlement funds. The city has received $128,000 so far from settlements with pharmaceutical companies. These funds are restricted in use and must be applied to strategies that mitigate the impact of opioids on our community.
Mr. Martin?
Just a question about the opioid. I know Commissioner Hartman had been our previous representative to that. Who is now monitoring it or representing us, or?
Well, ultimately, I am. So we've not had a whole lot of action here with opioid settlements recently. We've had a couple of settlements that are being paid that we've had to set up accounts for. So as you can see, we only really have a small amount of money here, and it's very restricted on what it can be spent on. So we'll be working with our staff to identify programs and things that we can put those funds toward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just to go over property values a little more detail. New construction is estimated at $103.8 million, which is a decrease of $26 million compared to last year. Annexations are projected to be $769,000, which is also down from fiscal year 2025. Existing property, however, shows strong growth, rising from $6.89 billion to $7.43 billion. That's an increase of about $540 million. When we total these figures, the overall taxable value for fiscal year 2026 is estimated, as mentioned earlier, at $7.5 billion, up from $7 billion in the current fiscal year.
Commissioner Martin?
Just a quick question. Are we planning to do any initiatives towards getting more annexations? We know it's hard on the property owners as well as the city in that big old donut hole.
Well, the short answer to that is yes. The long answer, or longer answer, is there are definitely some areas that we need to focus on for annexation. I'll be working particularly with our planning and development department on those types of issues. And, as we come this year into updating our comprehensive plan, I think there'll be definitely some opportunities there for us to look at annexation and the services that would need to be provided in those areas. Some in the city, the so-called donut hole, and then some beachside as well.
Joe, just looking at the top line there, new construction, Does that reflect, am I reading it right? Does it reflect a decrease in the number of new constructions or the general property value of new construction?
The value.
The value. Can you help me through that? Why would that be?
Shane?
Well, it could be a couple of things. The volume of construction, the number of new permits that we're issuing.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Is it a volume question or is it a value question?
Well, it's both. So it could be less permits and it could be less valuable permits. Less construction, less commercial construction, all of that factors in.
We get inputs regularly about slowing things down, and that math looks like $25, $26 million worth of less being built. Is that?
Yeah, you can have something, for example, there's a new apartment complex that was built in Venetian Bay. I'm not sure exactly what the valuation of that was, but probably, $20+ million in one project in 1 year. If you don't have that project the next year, then that's going to affect your valuations.
Thank you.
These graphs illustrate the composition of properties within the city. 84% of all properties are residential, 11% are commercial or industrial, and the remaining 5% include vacant land, ag parcels, institutional properties, and other classifications. Looking at the residential category, the pie graph to the right, of the residential properties, approximately 11,000 or 60% are homesteaded, while about 7,900 or 40% are non-homesteaded. This breakdown is important because homesteaded properties are subject to annual value caps, while non-homesteaded properties are not, and that impacts how our property tax revenue grows over time. This slide shows how our city's maximum operating millage rate compares to the other local governments for fiscal year 2026. As you can see, most cities did not increase their max millage rate this year. Our city's rate remains the same at 4.637 mils, which is highlighted on this chart. Out of the 16 local jurisdictions shown, only 3 have lower rates, placing us in the bottom quarter of the comparison group. DeBerry has the lowest rate at 3.65 mils, and Orange City has the highest rate at 7.8 mils. This demonstrates that we continue maintaining...
Joe, I got a question for you.
Oh,
Sorry
yes.
to interrupt. Have these millage rates been adjusted recently? Because I thought Ormond Beach was around 4.0, roughly around there.
Yes, this reflects the max millage rates that the other jurisdictions would have just adopted in July.
Perfect, good, because I've been kind of wondering how Ormond Beach had done such a great job at keeping their millage rate low, but it seems like that may explain a lot after this proposed millage or budget session for all these cities. So I want to point that out.
Okay,
And so we're looking much better. Thank you.
great. I also wanted to note that once the max millage rate is set by the commission, it cannot be increased for fiscal year 2026 in accordance with the Florida statutes. The proposed budget includes an increase in the stormwater rate from $104 to $125 per equivalent dwelling unit. This translates to approximately $5.73 per thousand square feet per month, as shown on this chart. When comparing our updated rate to other cities with stormwater fees, several key points stand out. Our rate of 5.73 places us slightly above the median among our peers. Edgewater has the highest rate at $7.19, while DeLand and Ormond Beach are on the lower end with rates around $2.26 and $2.33 respectively. Our rate is comparable to Daytona Beach and South Daytona, indicating that we're in line with similar sized communities. This adjustment will ensure we remain able to address our stormwater infrastructure improvements and needs. The proposed fiscal year 2026 budget also includes marina dockage fee increases, which reflect both market conditions and operational needs. As shown in this table, the proposed rates vary by residency and dock type. These adjustments are being proposed for several reasons. The city currently maintains a large waiting list for marina slips, indicating strong demand. A significant portion of current slip holders are non-residents, and our existing rates have been significantly below those of neighboring marinas. This rate increase will help ensure the marina is well-maintained and is a self-supporting asset while prioritizing access for residents and aligning with the regional market rates. The proposed fiscal year 2026 budget includes the addition of 7 new positions, bringing the total number of authorized positions from 348.5 to 355.5. The new roles are strategically aligned with the 3 key themes prioritized in this year's budget. In terms of overall staffing, 43% of all positions are in public safety. The remaining 50% are distributed fairly evenly across general government, leisure services, and public works. This is some detailed information about the 7 new positions that are being proposed. We've talked about this in the past. Now we're going to get into looking at a comparison between the 25 budget and the 26 budget. During the first budget workshop, several commissioners asked why the budget appeared to have increased so significantly. And this slide helps clarify that concern. While the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget of $199 million is indeed an increase over the original 25 adopted budget of $136 million, it actually represents a decrease from the amended fiscal year 2025 budget, which we're operating under currently, which is $203 million. A comparison of the amended budget offers a more accurate and meaningful perspective, and over the next several slides, we'll break down the key factors that contributed to those amendments and examine how the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget aligns with or differs from those changes. This slide depicts the revenue budgets for fiscal year 2025 and the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. You also have a handout. It provides a high-level summary of changes across major revenue categories. To help you follow along, a printed copy of this sheet has been provided for reference. You may find it useful to keep it handy as we move through the slides and talk about the details. For now, I just wanted to mention the original fiscal year 2025 budget totaled $136 million. As I mentioned, the amended budget is currently at $203 million, and the proposed budget is $199 million, which is a $3.8 million decrease from the current amended budget, or a 2% decrease. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the changes. So this slide highlights one of the most significant changes in the amended fiscal year 2025 budget, the increase in funds carried forward from the prior year. You'll see that on, if you look at the handout in column 3, we'll be focusing on the major changes in column 3, which is the difference between the original budget and the current budget we're operating under. Across all funds, the total increase was approximately $64 million, with notable contributions from general fund, capital project fund, and impact fee funds. It is important to understand that these funds represent cash already in the bank, not new revenues or new sources of income. The purpose of recognizing these funds in the amended budget is to ensure all available resources are accounted for and visible in the financial plan. This approach allows the city to budget required reserves on the expense side, which improves transparency and provides a more complete picture of the city's financial position. Continuing with the discussion on amendments, this slide highlights key changes in intergovernmental revenues, miscellaneous revenues, and charges for services. Intergovernmental revenues increased by approximately $11.9 million. Again, you'll see that in column 3. primarily due to grants received for capital projects. These include grant funding for dredging, the 27th Avenue beach ramp, home elevation and rebuild efforts, and grants from FIND, CDBG, ECHO, and Transform 386. Miscellaneous revenue rose by $1.4 million. That's driven by interest income that had not been previously budgeted, and charges for services increased by $1.4 million, reflecting the recognition of impact fee collections to date, which also had not been previously budgeted. Continuing with the discussion on amendments, this slide outlines further changes related to loan proceeds and interfund transfers. First, there is a $2.6 million decrease in loan proceeds. This reduction reflects a previously contemplated borrowing from the city's line of credit, which is no longer needed due to other funding sources becoming available. There was also a net decrease of $8.3 million in interfund transfers, and that's driven by a mix of increases and decreases across several funds. The $4.9 million increase from Stormwater Fund to the General Fund is to repay funds advanced for the HMPG projects. The $1 million transfer to the Transportation Impact Fee Fund was made to reimburse the fund for the Flagler and Peninsula Avenue property, which was originally purchased for a turn lane, but now is being repurposed for parking operations. The $10.5 million decrease from the Stormwater Fund to the Capital Project Fund reflects the fact that other resources have been secured for Corbin Park Stormwater Project via the Transform 386 grant, and the historic West Side Stormwater Project is still in design, so construction funds aren't needed yet. The $2.7 million decrease from the line of credit to the Capital Project Fund aligns with the earlier point that the borrowing is no longer needed. And lastly, the $4.1 million decrease from the Parking Fund to Capital Project Fund is a result of eliminating funding for the AOB project, which it evolved from a parking initiative to docks and shoreline revetment.
Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, just a quick question. The parking to capital fund, not this decrease, but I understood that ultimately the parking fund was paying for the flagger. In other words, paying back the transport fee.
Yes.
So is it going from parking fund to capital project to transportation to replay it?
Yes, there was parking funds available within the capital project fund that had been transferred in years past and not needed.
Okay.
So that was transferred, as you see the bullet about the $1 million being transferred back to transportation impact fees.
Yeah, no, that explains how it wanders through capital projects.
Yes.
Thanks.
So that covered the changes between the original budget for 25 and the revised budget for 25. Now we're going to talk about the differences between the proposed budget for 2026 on the revenues compared to that revised budget for revenues. Funds carried forward from the prior year are actually decreasing by $20 million in the 2026 budget. While a substantial portion of these carry forward funds were allocated to required reserves or unassigned reserves, an equal share was allocated to one-time capital projects. These projects are expected to be completed by the end of the current fiscal year as contractors are paid. We are seeing a drawdown in available cash and a reduction in the funds being carried forward. This shift is reflected across several fund categories, most notably a $13.8 million decrease in the Capital Project Fund, a $5.1 million decrease in the Debt Service Fund, a $4.9 million decrease in the Stormwater Fund. There are also some increases, which include $4.4 million increase in the General Fund and a $1.2 million increase in the CRA Fund. In addition to changes in carry-forward funds, there are shifts in intergovernmental revenues and miscellaneous revenues. And if you look at column 5 on the revenue sheet, you can follow along on the changes that I'm talking about. So starting with intergovernmental revenues, we're seeing a net decrease of $2.9 million. The reduction in intergovernmental revenues reflects one-time grants that were budgeted and received in fiscal year '25. Since these grants are no longer available and not rebudgeted in fiscal year 2026, you see a resulting decrease of 20.1 million that is offset by new or continuing grants, including 10 million for historic West Side and Corbin Park projects, 5.9 million in FAA and FDOT grants, and 1.4 million for hardened barricades. In miscellaneous revenue, there is a decrease of 3.2 million, primarily due to interest income, which is anticipated to drop as cash balances decline with the completion of capital projects and the $20 million reduction in funds carried forward. There's also a $1 million reduction in naming rights revenue. There is a net decrease of 1.5 million in charges for services. This is primarily due to a $2.5 million reduction in allocated overhead, which is being offset by a $600,000 increase in stormwater fees as a result of the increased rates. In the category of other taxes, you'll see a net increase of 1.4 million that's being driven by franchise fees and public service tax. And finally, property taxes are projected to increase by 2.6 million due to increased tax base. To conclude our review of the revenue changes, we'll look at loan proceeds and interfund transfers, which represent the final major adjustment in column 5. Loan proceeds are increasing in 2026 by 5.4 million, and this is to reflect the planned borrowing for Turnbull Creek land acquisition. This amount represents the remaining balance authorized by voters, and its inclusion in the fiscal year 2026 budget supports the completion of the strategic land purchases. Interfund transfers show a net decrease, driven primarily by the establishment of new capital project funds, which are offset by the expiration of one-time transfers made in fiscal year 2025.
These are all the revenues,
Yes.
and you're now concluded with the revenues?
Yes.
Can I ask a couple, I've got two ideas about potentially reducing some of the tax on the businesses and the residents. In each of the cell phone bills that we get, there's a city tax of a few dollars or a few cents. I know the county has just done away with their tax on that. What do we use that telephone tax for, and can we get rid of it?
I'm not certain about getting rid of it, but it does come back to the city in the form of the communication services tax, which is a revenue that goes into your general fund and supports general fund operations. It would be a legal question as it relates to removing the...
All righty.
That's not something I could tell you right
All right,
now.
yeah, I know it sprung it on you.
We can look into that and get that.
That'd be great, that'd be great. The other one's a little more significant. It has to do with mostly our businesses. It's the BTR. I know that there are some cities that are zeroing out the BTR fees, and I understand that goes to the general fund as well. Maybe you could do some analysis to say what that revenue is for us and what we would do if we didn't have that revenue, as a proposal to increase and stimulate business growth in our community to offset that pie chart that you showed, where 80-some% of the ad valorem tax comes from residents, potentially boost Director Bergeron's opportunity to grow more businesses, and as a goodwill thing. Just an idea, and we can discuss it. Yes, ma'am?
How are the BTR funds used now? Are they in the general fund, or are they used to, could we direct them more closely to economic development so that there is more of a cause and effect in there?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Some idea, too.
The BTR funds are deposited in the general fund. They partially offset the cost of one employee who's involved in the collection and monitoring of those fees.
Well, what I mean is that if we somehow tied it directly to economic development, it might be a more logical connection for people to make. So rather than losing that revenue, it's it's going towards functionally their business and the advertising behind. So, just a thought.
So without objection, bring those both back to us, please, before we get to do the final vote, if you don't mind.
And for context, it's approximately 300,000 over the last couple of years.
For the BTR?
Yes,
Got it.
Was that cumulative or annually?
that's annual.
One last, if I may. When was the last time we changed the rates for the BTR?
A few years ago. It was about 60, and then we doubled it to like 115.
Yeah, but it's been several years.
I would have to research that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to wrap that, obviously the initiative I've got in my mind is to give some tax relief back, right? The second one, and Commissioner Martin got an idea about maybe we could spend it more wisely on the BTR side, and that'd be over Director Bergeron. At the end of the day, and I heard you say part of it goes to funding the employee who helps collect it, so it sounds like a self-licking ice cream cone. I don't, we're going to collect it so we can pay somebody to collect it. That doesn't feel good. But if it had a great cause and effect, I like that a lot. Or at the end of the day, I just soon not let the businesses thrive and let Sam continue to do great things, and let's not charge them, and then bring your business to New Smyrna.
Well, there's multiple reasons for having the BTR. It's not just about revenue. In fact, the revenue is fairly negligible. That's really not the point here. The point is to make sure that we know what businesses are operating in the city and where they are, and that appropriate sales taxes are being collected, and that the uses are aligned with our zoning ordinance and our fire codes and all of the things that would go into inspecting commercial structures. We do that annually. So there's a much broader picture than just collecting a few dollars for a business tax.
Got it. I think that's probably worthy to have the data, but maybe we could do it as a service rather than charge them. Please proceed.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. And as the mayor referenced, that does conclude the revenue deep dive. So we're going to flip the page and go to the expenses and talk about the changes from the original to the revised budget for this current fiscal year and how they compare to the 2026 budget. So first, we're going to be looking at column 3, the changes in column 3. Okay, so the first has to do with the capital budget changes. So we added quite a bit of capital projects, as you can see from the list, ranging from dredging projects to lighting improvements at the sports complex, North Atlantic Drainage Project, Turnbull Creek land acquisition, stormwater master plan, stormwater pumps and generators, additional street resurfacing, fuel farm improvements, and airport beautification. So overall, the capital spending increased by about 18 million from when the budget was originally adopted this year. This slide focuses on the required reserves and unassigned reserves, both of which are being budgeted for the first time in fiscal year 25 as a result of the budget amendments. In total, required reserves were added at 16.9 million. These reserves were distributed across key areas, including general fund, fleet, stormwater, and sanitation funds. Additionally, unassigned reserves for capital were introduced at 12 million. These represent funds available that have not been earmarked for a specific expense or capital project. Unassigned reserves are seen in the impact fee funds, capital project fund, Turnbull Creek land acquisition fund. Unassigned reserves for non-capital, debt service, and operating expenses also changed since the budget was adopted. Unassigned reserves for non-capital increased by about 11 million. Again, this is a new budgeting practice. While these funds were already available in the city's accounts, they were previously only recognized in the budget when allocated for a specific purpose. Now they're being formally included in the budget to improve transparency and financial planning. The debt service increased by 7.7 million from the adopted budget, primarily due to the identification of unspent line of credit proceeds. These funds are now being earmarked to reduce the principal balance on that line of credit, which is a strategic move aimed at lowering future interest costs. And lastly, operating expenses rose by 6.9 million. This was largely related to Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Ian. The final significant change between the original and adopted budget and amended budget is interfund transfers, which show a net decrease in column 3 on your handout of 8.2 million. Interfund transfers affect both revenue and expense sides of the budget equally. Because of this, we've already covered the details of these changes earlier when we reviewed the revenue adjustments between the adopted and amended budgets. So we won't go into them again here. I'll just note what those changes were. Now we're going to shift our focus to the material expense changes between the adopted budget of 203 million and the proposed budget of 199 million. The first area of change is the unassigned reserves non-capital. You'll see a $3.1 million decrease in the stormwater fund. This reflects a reduction in available funds that are not designated for a specific purpose, as those reserves are drawn down or reallocated. You'll also see a $7.3 million decrease in debt service, which is tied to that one-time fiscal year 2025 expense we just talked about to pay down the principal on the line of credit. And then operating expenses are decreasing by 6.9 million as well, and that's because Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Ian won't be rebudgeted in your 2026 proposed budget. And we're looking at column 5 on the handout right now.
Commissioner Martin?
Just reiterating or making sure I'm understanding that having used the unrecognized funds that have been sitting there, and we recognize them in 25, so now we have what we need where we need it, so we don't need to budget again for it in 26.
Correct.
Thank you.
Grants and aids and personnel cost changes. Grants and aids is a mix of adjustment, notably rebudgets of activities from fiscal year 25 that are not anticipated to be completed, so they'll be carried forward. $1 million increase for CRA grants and assistance, and $1.9 million decrease for demo rebuild home projects that were completed in 25. Personnel cost, you see a $2.2 million increase, and that's driven by implementation of the pay plan study, new union contracts, and the addition of 7 new positions that total around $700,000. And as mentioned earlier, interfund transfers impact both the revenue and expense, so I'm not going to go into the detail because we've already talked about it, but you'll see interfund transfers are increasing by 14.8 million, and that's money moving between funds. So now that we've covered the major changes in the overall budget, I wanted to briefly talk about the general fund, which serves as the city's main operating fund. This graph illustrates how every dollar in the general fund is allocated, providing a clear snapshot of the city's spending priorities. The largest portion, 34 cents for every dollar, goes to public safety, underscoring the city's strong investment in police, fire, and emergency services. 20 cents of every dollar is set aside for reserves, supporting long-term financial stability and preparedness. 12 cents is dedicated to capital improvements, and 11 cents supports general government operations. Parks and Leisure Services receive about 9 cents of every dollar, while streets and infrastructure receive about 4 cents of every dollar. Finally, there's 2 cents allocated to debt service. This pie chart shows the breakdown of general fund operating revenues by type. As you can see, property taxes make up the largest share at 59%, followed by other taxes at 23%. The remaining revenues come from intergovernmental sources, charges for services, and miscellaneous revenues. This chart shows how general fund operating expenses are allocated by function. Public safety accounts for the largest share at 50%. General government functions, which include administration, finance, and support services, make up 20%. Parks and leisure services represent 14%, supporting quality of life amenities for residents and visitors. Streets and infrastructure account for 6%, and the remaining 10% is categorized as miscellaneous expenses. So with that, we're going to turn our attention to the future. As it relates to future considerations, one option for the commission to consider is implementing a fire assessment, which would be a dedicated charge to help fund fire protection services, including basic life support. Unlike ad valorem taxes, this fee is based on the benefit to the property, not its value. For context, rates in Volusia County range from $50 per residential unit in Edgewater to over $330 in Lake Helen. If the commission is interested, we recommend conducting a fire assessment study in the fall of 2025 to stay on track. An intent resolution would need to be adopted sometime in January 2026. Some other future considerations. The city's current solid waste hauler contract expires in September 2026. We'll need to either negotiate or issue an RFP in the fall of 2025. This will also be an opportunity to evaluate service levels like recycling, yard waste, and automation, knowing that both hauler costs and customer rates are likely to rise. And for the golf course, a study is planned in fiscal year 25 to assess operations and infrastructure. The goal is to explore long-term options, whether to retain, invest, repurpose, or divest, and determine the most cost-effective use of the property. Finally, looking at reoccurring capital needs. The fiscal year 2026 budget continues as a pay-as-you-go approach, allocating $1.9 million from the general fund for vehicle replacements and equipment replacements, and $1.6 million for street resurfacing, and additionally $800,000 for building repairs and maintenance like roofs and ACs. This strategy helps avoid debt for routine maintenance and supports our goal of maintaining consistent annual funding. It also aligns with priority theme 8, which is improving the function and appearance of existing infrastructure. And with that, that concludes the presentation. This is just to remind you of the next steps, which will be the first public hearing on September 10th, second and final public hearing on September 23rd, and then the beginning of the fiscal year on October 1st.
Really good. Any questions or comments by my colleagues on the budget? I have one. Would you go back to slide 35, please? Maybe 34, but I'll check it here. That's it, right there. Mr. Manager and Director Jury, of your experience in other cities, other places, does this ratio hold up? Is this the right? Are we doing? Is it appropriate for a city our size? Should we have more to streets? Is general government, which could be called G&A overhead, is it too big? Are we spending the right amount of money on public safety versus leisure services? How does it all stack up to you?
Yeah, I mean, in my view here, there's nothing out of the ordinary in what we're doing. This seems pretty typical. You know, it's going to vary from community to community, a few things here and there, but I would say this, you know, reflects New Smyrna Beach community values, where We place a lot of emphasis on our public safety, both police and fire. And you've heard me say this is where it all starts. If we don't feel safe in our community, we can't have parks to go to. We don't feel safe in our homes. Without that, the community will go into decline. So we have a strong emphasis on public safety. And also, the leisure services in our community, it's a big deal. People are here to enjoy the outdoors and enjoy their lives. So, passive recreation and, organized sports, all of those things are taken into account here. You've heard me talk about our infrastructure. I've focused a lot on that this year, and I think this is an area where we need to pay more attention, looking at our existing infrastructure, our stormwater infrastructure, our street network, all of those things, and how well we're meeting the current demands, and ultimately how we will prepare to meet the future demands as we continue to grow and develop. So all of that said, I don't really think there's anything out of the ordinary here, and I think this budget and this pie chart more or less accurately reflects our community values.
Wonderful. And you're able to execute those 9 themes with this distribution as well that we've set aside as strategic priorities, right?
That's right, and that's an important point to make. We're trying to connect our budget to our strategic vision for the community, and we've put out those priority themes, things that we are focused on. And this year we've focused in on the organization and building a high performing organization, and that includes things like pay and equipment and technology, helping our staff deliver services in an efficient and capable manner, making sure in particular that our police and fire have the best equipment that's available to protect the citizens and themselves. And so I feel very good about where we are in terms of spending our money in a directed manner. We can't possibly be all things to all people, and this budget emphasizes a few areas. As we move into next year's business, we'll probably shift focus a little bit and focus in on some other areas. I don't know where that is yet, and a lot of that depends on things that you decide to do this year.
Thank you, sir. And so any closing comments from the Commission Vice Mayor?
No, I think I'm good for the moment.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I thank you all for this budget. I think it has gone incredibly well. I feel that I feel the confidence that you all are putting out, and I'm pleased to experience that. I did want to make one point. I've heard that there was a little bit of confusion out there about the last time we had at our last meeting. There was some discussion about a few $1 million being found, and like the 70 million we talk about, the way that this is going to filter through the community or someone's going to interpret it online, we didn't just find $3 million sitting somewhere that wasn't accounted for. So I just want to reiterate that and make a point that people need to reach out to staff and commissioners and the mayor if they have any questions, and not get worried that something like that happened, which it didn't. But the terms that we use, due to the complexity of this kind of public accounting, it's easy for us to say something that can be confusing to the typical resident out there just listening. And certainly your guys, the language you speak is not common for the average person. So anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Perine.
I agree. Thank you for all your hard work. One of the things we get often is what Commissioner McGurk says is, why are you spending this on, example, safety when your infrastructure, we had flooding? Well, it doesn't work that way. We have budgets and pockets for each. And if you heard our city manager, we're in alignment with our needs. And when we have needs to beef up like the stormwater infrastructure, we do. Our development numbers are way down. We're some of the lowest in development in, 200 cities? So when you look at the whole, we have very strict rules in this city. We have complaints sometimes because we're so strict, but we have a beautiful city, and sometimes you have to have rules to have, the needs. So it's a budget, and it's a balance, and all of these things work together. And we do our best of accommodating to what you guys tell us you need. We don't manage you, the staff, but we do manage Manager Cowper, and he brings to us with a wealth of information of analyzing what our city has been doing and what he has seen in other cities. So it's nice to have this breath of fresh air to look at things in a different perspective. And for us, this board rotates off and back on with new people. And so it's important that we have checks and balances through audits. And the audit passed as well. And just the new way that you're doing the budgeting that Commissioner McGurk said, we didn't just find money. She's accounting for it in the budget only in a different way. And we appreciate this, and I like how you've done it. And I think we've all said that from the past workshops. And we thank you for all your hard work.
Absolutely. Special commendation for Ms. Bola and for you, Director Jury, for the teamwork that you've displayed. And shout out to the alignment with the department heads. I got to spend some time with the finance director at the farmers market and understanding that the true service that the finance department is trying to provide to the department heads to actually have them implement their business unit. And that some of that disconnect that may have existed previously is not a willful one, but one of lack of understanding and insight that you now have had your team go out and actually look around and see here's what happens out there in the operations of the city. So totally well done. And to the point that both Commissioner Perine and Commissioner McGurk made about the full transparency of the full budget of all of the part of our entire holdings, which were on file but not displayed as apparent as you've made it. We're grateful for that. And this opportunity, this briefing, which will be available to the public, will be fully explained. That jump from what appeared to be 136 million to 199 million, or 203 million rather. And so I think that'll be extremely helpful. Madam Clerk, anything from you?
Not at this time. Thank
Madam
you.
City Attorney?
No.
Mr. Manager?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you one and all for coming. We're adjourned.